Right here. Hello. I'm over here. All right, we're working. We're live. Welcome everybody who's online tonight and everybody here. We're going to be in Isaiah 46. We might get through 48. That's my goal. We'll see, because that kind of ends this section here. And then we will resume back when we start a Bible study back again. So this is our last night of Bible study. Before we go into our season of outreach, next week's drive-through prayer and clothing closet, and so we will be doing that for the next few months. So I'll miss our Bible study time with you all tonight. But Isaiah 46, if you got it, everybody got their sheet? Follow along. So Isaiah 46. 46 and 47, I'll pass out 48 if we get that far. You guys don't have 46?
I have this one.
You got 46? 46. 46. All right, 46, 47. You guys got it? Everybody got it? All right, good. And of course, if you bring your Bibles, you don't have to worry about the sheet, right? But the sheet's there too, for you can write notes if you want, make notes. And all right. So let's take a look at verse 1. Bel crouches, Nebo cowers. Idols depicting them are consigned to beasts and cattle. The images you carry are loaded as a burden for the weary animal. So, who are Bel and Nebo? Anybody got a guess?
Yeah, I do.
All right, go for it. One word.
Well, they're idols.
There you go. All right. Okay, Patty, give us a little more info. Go for it. So you've been doing some study. Great.
Nebo,
Uh-huh.
he's the god of wisdom, but Bel is the supreme idol god.
Okay.
And they're two, they just wanted to get rid of them. When they got ready to move them, they were just too heavy.
Okay, they were like me. They needed to lose weight. Yes. Yeah, so you had Bel. Uh-huh.
And then yeah, they kept, and they were saying, I think they caught on their stuff, caught on that it wasn't doing them any good. The idols weren't praying back to it or helping them when they prayed to it.
I don't know if they caught on, but
They were just powerless, false religion, and they put them away.
right. Yep.
And God made adultery, so he got the contract. They just, and then, oh, well, I'm getting ahead, so I'll go away.
Okay, well, wait. So Bel was also known as another word. You probably recognize this more. The Canaanites called him Baal. So it's the same God. That's just the Canaanite version of him. He was also considered like the father of Marduk, I believe, and who was the chief god. It's an alternate name for the Babylonian god Marduk, who was considered the chief god of Babylon. So he was also called Marduk as well. So we had that god. And then we had Nebo, sometimes different spelling, Nebu, Nebo, different spellings here. And it's interesting because there are 3 Babylonian kings who's had his name in their name. Does anybody know one of them? There's one of Babylonian king, very famous, who this was a big part of his name, Nebuchadnezzar. Yeah. So that God's name was in his name. Another one, I can't remember how to spell it. So another one, this is an alternate spelling of his name. You may have heard of this guy, but he's not Nabopolassar. He was a one L. He was another one. And so Nabo is another alternate of this name. And then the other one was Nabonidus. So, I mean, this was a very popular god. And just doing a little research, what they would do in Babylon, I'll put it up here on the screen. I think I got it for you on the screen if my computer is working. Let's see if it's working tonight. Oh, it always helps to plug in the receiver. Doing a little research. So Nabu's statue was located in a city called Borsippa, which was southwest of Babylon. And often the king would accompany Nabu's statue when they would lead it in a procession. And apparently they would have this procession every year around the New Year festival in Babylon. So the first 4 days they were preparing, there were prayers, they were cleansing the temple, the recitation of the Enuma Elish. And then the king would travel to Borsippa to escort Nebu's statue. And then on the 5th day, there would be, this is interesting, they'd have a time of humiliation and reaffirmation of the king before the statue, Marduk. He'd be stripped of his insignia, he would be slapped by a priest to draw tears as a good omen, then they would restore him. And then Nebu's statue arrived and it was installed. And then on days 6 through 8, Nebu's statue joined Marduk's and other gods. Of course, Marduk is Bel. Okay. Other god statues as symbols and rituals included symbolic battles or purification. And then the gods on day 8 gathered in an assembly, exalted Marduk, and decreed fates for the year. So and then they would have this big procession with all the gods going through. They'd be carrying the statues by boat or chariot. The king led the procession. The people sang hymns, not Amazing Grace, but they would sing their hymns of their gods and to Ishtar. And then later they would have these feasts and sacred marriage rites for fertilities and all this stuff. So, and then they would take the statues back. So I think that's what Isaiah has in mind here, is this procession. Oh, it lost me. Okay. We're going to have to get better eyeballs. Maybe it just likes Jerome. Don't walk off screen. Like walk off where? Oh, it lost me. Okay, I'm sorry. Hello, everybody. I will try not to walk off the screen again. Sweet.
You know how we talk about how that carried the items are heavy or they had to move them. And then I found out that it said in Isaiah 46:30, I think it's 46:34. I think it's 46. I thought it was nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah, 46:34. The Lord, I think through your first year report about the Lord of contrast on the Lord is telling them he doesn't have to carry.
Right.
He carries his people or anything that needs to be carried.
Right. We'll hit that here in a minute. There you go. Yeah. We're going to talk about that. Yeah. So, yeah. So I think that's what's referring in verse 2, kind of these gods. These were a big thing in Babylon. By the way, Isaiah is writing about 150 years before the Babylonian captivity. So he is telling them what's going to happen in the future. They're going to be taken into Babylon, this city with these gods. Verse 2, the gods cower. They crouch together. They're not able to rescue the burden, but they themselves go into captivity. So who brought down the Babylonians? Anybody remember their history? They're in the news right now. Their country's in the news. The Persians, the Medes and the Persians brought down Babylon. And but it's interesting that they kept the Babylonian gods. And I think that's the idea here when he says they go into captivity. So he's predicting that the gods are going to still be a part of this. And what's interesting, we talked about Cyrus the Great last week, and we'll talk about him again. That Cyrus the Great, after he conquered Babylon, he asked the Babylonians to have their god Bel to grant him and his son a long life. So he adopted the gods. okay, into his pantheon. So I think that's what he's talking about, where it says they went into captivity. And then what Patty was talking about, though, look at verse 4. Here's a contrast. Listen to me, house of Jacob, and all the remnant of the house of Israel who have been sustained from the womb and carried along since birth. I will be the same until your old age, and I will bear you up when you turn gray. I have made you, I will carry you, I will bear and rescue you. So, kind of going back with what Patty talked about, who is carrying them? God is carrying them. In verse 1, verse 4, verse 1, who's doing the carrying? The people are doing the carrying in verse 1, but then in verse 4, God talks about he'll be the one who is carrying, right? So what is being carried in verse 1? The gods, the hot, heavy idols. And who is being carried in verse 4? The people, being the Jewish people, right? God is talking to his people, the Jewish people, okay? And I just thought, too, that, maybe we should have got the $200 model instead of the $20 model. That's what you get when you buy a $20 gimbal. So I'm over here. Okay. But one thing I look for when you're studying scripture are repeated phrases. So do you guys see any repeated phrases in verse 4? I will. So let's write, what are the I will promises of God? So God says, I will what? Okay, I will be the same. God never changes, right? We call that immutability. He is the same yesterday, today, and forever. All right. What else does he say? I will. I will bear you up. Okay. He says, I will carry and deliver. I will deliver you. Was there one other one? Rescue. Now, so God tells him he's going to do all this and stuff. So what's the contrast between false religion and the true religion?
False one can't do all that.
False one doesn't do that, right? In fact, who has to do the carrying in the false religion? The people. And again, every religion in the world except Christianity is built on works. Do this. Hopefully your good will outweigh your bad. Every religion ultimately comes down to that except Christianity, which comes down to grace. Were you going to say something, Beth?
I'm noticing where it says in verse 1, Bel crouches and Nebo cowers, compared to what God will do, he's going to do all of these things.
Wow, okay. That's a good point. Yeah, so the idols are crouching and what was that other word? Cowering. And then God's standing tall, like I'm going to carry you, I'm going to do this. The gods aren't going to stop, right? Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't see that. That's a great observation. So again, kind of the thing, I think I put it on the screen. You can, no, this isn't going to work, and I'm not going to go back behind the thing. You can carry your own false gods, or you can allow the one true God to carry you. Right. And a lot of people today, I'm afraid, again, we may not have those particular idols, but a lot of people have their own false gods, right? And even Christians can sometimes move away from the one true God, right? But if we'll just let God carry us, it sure takes off a lot of pressure, right? And so again, I think this is a good thing. You can carry your own false gods, or you can allow the one true God to carry you. So let's go down to verse 5 here. He says, to whom will you compare me or make me equal? So some questions, right? Rhetorical questions. Who will you measure me with so that we should be like each other? Of course, what's the answer to all that? There's nobody. You can't compare God. I mean, God is infinite. These idols are in a building, they're stuck in a place. They're just statues. Those who pour out their bags of gold and silver and weigh out silver on scales, they hire a goldsmith. He makes it into a god. Then they kneel down and bow to it. They lift their shoulders and bear it along. They set it in place, and there it stands. It does not budge from its place. They cry out to it, but it doesn't answer. It saves no one from their troubles. So, comparison, God and a false idol. What does God do when we cry out to him? He answers us. He certainly hears us, right? He hears our cry. These idols, they don't hear anything. So how do these false gods respond to worshipers? They don't do anything. They just sit there. Okay, and what can they do? They can't do anything, right? So, but again, why did we talk about last week? Why do people have idols in their lives?
Some people are
Brought up in that worshiping that, yeah. So let me phrase it differently. Why do a lot of people choose? I mean, because these people are bringing their gold and silver, and the goldsmiths making it. They at the core, they know these things are just statutes, right? But why do they keep worshiping them?
I'm surprised how many people think that.
They think that statue can really do something, right?
They really believe. I mean, that's what they were raised to believe, and some cultures
Mm-hmm.
have those, and they really believe in that.
Right. Right.
You go back to us, but you're probably saying the same question, or asking the same question as us. Why would we believe in a God that we don't see and we don't have idols? So they're probably like, well, who are they praying to? There's nobody, where they take the idols as somebody to look at.
Okay. So they're like, at least I see something and I can't see your God, right?
Right.
Right. Okay.
Part of it is their lifestyle.
Right. The false gods aren't going to really make any, and especially these gods, right? You can, no demands, you can live however you want to. In fact, these false gods, a lot of them would encourage you to indulge the flesh, right? And so people have false gods today. They may not have an idol they bow down to, but sports can be an idol. TV, laziness can be an idol. All those things can be idols in our lives because, hey, I want to focus my attention on something that doesn't really require anything of me. It lets me do what I want to do, right? And
What about the false idols? I mean, be a point like our God, he has lawlessness, he has demands for us, and to follow him
Right.
and his word.
right.
Those who follow idols have none of that. So it's kind of like they pray for what they want, and pray to the idol first. They get up smiling, knowing it's going to be automatically answered. No pressure. I mean, I'm just saying,
Right.
no pressure, no nothing.
Right.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, yeah, I don't, obviously, I think a lot of these idols back in, and again, there's a good argument that there were demons behind each one of these idols, right? So, in fact, I've read somewhere where they would talk about when they would bring these idols in, they would pray for the spirit to inhabit these idols. So I think behind these false idols, there were demonic forces at work, right?
So they would answer, the demons would answer them like God and our Father answered them.
Well, I don't know if I would. They would certainly, people worship false idols so they can basically do what they want to do, right? Because those idols appeal to the flesh, right? So I don't know if I'd use the word answer their prayers other than give them permission to do what they want to do. Right. Yeah, because we have a sinful nature and we naturally want to do things that are in rebellion, right? Whereas the one true God is calling us to follow him. And so one thing I wanted to look at verse 8, though. This is really interesting. He says, remember this and be brave. Take it to heart, you transgressors. Remember what happened long ago, for I am God and there is no other. I am God and no one is like me. So who is God talking to in verse 8? Who is he talking to? Is he talking to the Babylonians or is he talking to the Jewish people? Yeah, I think he's talking to the Jewish people. And what's interesting is he's talking to the Jewish people. He's calling them transgressors. And yet, if you go back to verse 4, even though they're transgressors, and there's some other passages here he's going to talk to him about in a similar way. He still says, I will be with you in your old age. I will bear you up when you turn gray, right? And again, I think we have to, even today, where people argue Israel's a secular nation, they just had, I think, a big pride thing going on in Israel not too long ago and all this. They are a secular nation, but at the end of the day, it's not dependent upon what they do, it's dependent on what God's covenant with them. So even though here they weren't following God, he was like, I will still carry you, I will still hold you up. Now, it doesn't mean he's not going to discipline them, which he's going to do, because that's why they went to Babylonian captivity, right? It was discipline. But he still says, you are mine. And I think we have to remember that. And again, when he says, remember what happened long ago, what do you think he might be referring to? I don't know if there's a solid answer, but I have one in my mind.
Egypt,
I would say the Exodus. That is such a theme throughout the whole Bible. And again, that's part of the reason I argue Christ is going to return to Egypt, Isaiah 19, and lead an Exodus out of Egypt, because that is just a theme throughout Scripture, the Exodus. It's just this constant theme of God leading them out, and I think he's going to recreate it when he returns. But again, I think that's what he's talking to, and that's actually kind of what I'm going to talk about on Sunday a little bit. We're gonna look at the feeding of the 5,000. Y'all know the story, but it's an interesting passage because, in my view, God is using that to teach his disciples. And one of the things one of my first points, you can sleep through this if you want. Part of maturing in your faith is remembering what God has done in the past. So here's something you can think about Sunday. So he's sitting on the mountainside. The people are coming up to him, a huge crowd, and he asks Philip, what are we going to do about this? So here's a question. Why Philip? You can just ponder that. Why didn't he ask Peter or James or John? Those were the inner crowd. Why does he talk to Philip? Something to ponder. We'll hit it on Sunday. So come back. All right. I think there's a reason he asked Philip. And but there's also a reason why he asked the question. So again, but one of the things that I was going to challenge all of us to do on Sunday is we have to remember how God's worked in the past. And God is calling them to remember what I did for you. I am God. There's nobody else. Nobody is like me. Now, verse 10 is a very interesting verse. I declare the end from the beginning, from long ago what is not yet done, saying, my plan will take place and I will do all my will. I just want to ask you, and this is a little rabbit trail. We won't go down this rabbit trail very far. What do you think? Do you think there's anything to that first phrase, I declare the end from the beginning?
that there will be, there's a beginning and there's an end.
Well, there is, but what would be the beginning that might declare the end?
Beginning of Adam and Eve.
The revelation, you're on the right track. What might be the beginning that would declare the end?
Adam and Eve.
Huh? That you're getting close. So the rabbit trail, and I get into this in the book, which is at the editor right now, and it definitely will be the foundation for my second book. I argue that the creation account is the template for the prophetic timeline of history. And I point to this verse. I declare the end from the beginning. That the reason God took 7 days, there were several reasons for the 7 days, but ultimately was to give us the panorama of the creation account is the panorama of human history. So anyways, that's one of my foundations of that. It's in the first book, but it's really going to be the primary thing in the second book. But small rabbit trail, we're going to get off of it, okay? But I just think that's an interesting statement. I declare the end from the beginning. And from long ago, what has not yet done. Saying, my plan will take place and I will do my will, all my will. All right, verse 11, let's see if we can figure out who this bird of prey is. I call a bird of prey from the east. A man for my purpose from a far country. Yes, I have spoken, so I will bring it about. I have planned it. I will also do it. Who do you think this is? Bird of prey from the east. East of Jerusalem. I think that we got to get our bearings.
Either Nebuchadnezzar or Cyrus.
Yeah, I think too, since we're talking about the Babylonian captivity, that we're probably now talking about Cyrus the Great. He is the bird of the prey who's going to come in and defeat them. And again, why would God choose this man? It's not that he was a believer, but God chose to use this guy. All right. Listen to me, you hard-hearted, far removed from justice. I mean, again, these are the same people he's going to carry and never abandon. Yet he calls them transgressors. Now he calls them hard-hearted, far removed from justice. I am bringing my justice near. It is not far away. My justice will not delay. I will put salvation in Zion, my splendor in Israel.
Didn't we say before
That happens to me a lot, Linda.
Talking about restoration.
Yeah, what do you think that last line is talking about, maybe?
Restoring Jerusalem or Israel.
When do you think that is, ultimately? When do you think ultimately he's going to do that? He's going to put his salvation in Zion and his splendor in Israel. The millennial reign of Christ. I think that's another, just a glimpse of that day that's coming.
Just to spring up to political heart of Israel, God's presence, bring them all together, try to restore and get back on the right track.
Okay, yeah, that's going to happen during the millennium. I thought real quickly, let's just make a chart in Isaiah 46 of how does God describe the Israelites? Just real quickly, how does he describe them in chapter 46? How does God describe the Israelites real quickly? Just some descriptions of them. This is a recap. Anybody online want to chime in?
all the transgressors.
Transgressors is one. Thank you. Transgressors.
Hard-hearted.
Yep. Transgressors. Hard-hearted. Was there any more? I think there was one kind of in the last verse we looked at. He calls him, I would say in verse 12, he calls him far removed from justice.
Or righteous.
Doesn't God sometimes choose non-believers?
Absolutely. He used Nebuchadnezzar, non-believer. You could argue maybe Nebuchadnezzar became a believer after he ended up eating grass for 7 years. But he definitely used Nebuchadnezzar. He definitely used the Assyrians, Sennacherib. Definitely used Cyrus the Great. No indication, as far as I know, that he ever made any sort of repentance. Cyrus the Great. So yeah, God uses unbelievers. I think that's sometimes we as a church have a hard time grasping that. That God can use somebody that's a non-believer to carry out his justice and to make his plans happen. Okay. And we might get into that a little bit in chapter 47. Is there anything happening on online world? Anybody? Okay, it's quiet out there tonight. All right. So, all right, good. Let's do 47 real quickly. We might hit 48. We'll see, because I kind of would like to get to 48 because this kind of wraps up this section. And I think it's a good stopping point for the year. And I think in 2027, we'll finish Isaiah. All right. Go down and sit in the dust, virgin daughter Babylon. Sit on the ground without a throne, daughter Chaldea. Another name for Babylon, the people. For you will no longer be called pampered and spoiled. Take millstones and grind flour. Remove your veil, strip off your skirt, bare your thigh, wade through the streams. Your nakedness will be uncovered and your disgrace will be exposed. I will take vengeance. I will spare no one. What a description. Why do you think he calls her virgin daughter Babylon? Interesting phrase.
She's everything but a virgin. Frivolous.
Well, as far as serving other gods, that would be true, right? I guess. Whoring after other gods, although that was used of the Israelites, really, because God was their true God. I was thinking along the line that Babylon was kind of this undefeated empire. Like, nobody had defeated her, right? She was powerful. And you know, and the city, Babylon, was very wealthy. I mean, the wealth of the city was unmatched. Remember Nebuchadnezzar's working on his palace. Look what I've done. Created all the spoils of this. And God's getting ready to, he's saying, look, you know what? You may be undefeated. You may have all this stuff, verse 2, but you're getting ready to get brought down. You're going to have to grind your flour, and you're going to be exposed, and I'm going to take vengeance.
That's why back then, like today, people let their wealth get in their way, and it keeps them from really seeing the true wealth, which is God.
Right. Prosperity is a double-edged sword. You can see that in America, right? Nations get prosperous and they become far away from God, right?
And
And
it kind of reminds me, the Babylon, they were very, I want to say, they were very nasty. They had a lot of adultery, you name it, they had it.
well, all these
going
empires
on in
have.
that city.
Well, yeah, all
So
these
it's
empires
like
had
God
it.
bringing it down, he sees more than just the wealth,
Mhm.
but what, you know, they took advantage of the wealth, and all they did was play all day and all night.
Well, yeah, eventually, yeah. I mean, wealth ultimately brings down empires. So what brought down the Roman Empire?
Kind of saw
It's-
fire on people.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like they just had no other care. you know?
Right, right.
They had no other care at all.
Yeah. I mean, that's what's rotting America from the
And
inside.
same thing here in
Yeah.
America is happening.
Yeah,
So,
unfortunately.
so, would you say that, the Christians here in America should step up more?
Well, we can always step up.
out more?
We can always step up and step out. I mean, you know, I think, again, it's just easy for us to be comfortable, right? And not really step out of our zones.
It's scary.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
think it's fearful.
there's nothing wrong with wealth, but so many times it causes you to become,
You gotta be careful.
yeah, countries that normally grow wealthy eventually slide away. And one thing that's interesting about Babylon, God used them to bring judgment on his people, right? But God's going to then judge them, right? So he says, I'll take vengeance and I'll spare no one. So it's like he uses them to bring judgment on his people who are far from him, but that doesn't mean Babylon's going to get off the hook. They're going to have to be judged too. So, so any other thoughts?
I don't know what's bringing this up or not, but Babylon, before they became this great power, and I was thinking about this, and I just looked up the sermon before I spoke about it. At one point in time, the Assyrians it controlled Babylon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Babylon rebelled
Right.
and it became dominant power.
Mm-hmm.
I was just trying to reconcile the Virgin daughter of Babylon, basically. I'm reconcile that.
Yeah, from what I read, commentators kind of, at least a couple that I read, was the idea that, again, when they stood up and rebelled against Assyria, you know, I believe they kind of just kept the momentum going. I don't know that they got defeated ever again. So I don't know. I think, do you have your commentary here, Linda? What did yours? Oh, okay. Let's see what my study Bible said, if it does. This thing says that virgin is sarcastic. So I don't know. Interesting. Either way, Babylon is a spoiled brat. So look at verse 4. The Holy One of Israel is our Redeemer. The Lord of armies is his name. That's just like interjected in there. I don't know if it's just like a reminder, you know, like God is our Redeemer. But then again, verse 5, daughter Chaldea, sit in silence and go in darkness, for you will no longer be called mistress of kingdoms. I was angry with my people. I profaned my possession and I handed them over to you. So God used them as judgment. You showed them no mercy. You made your yoke very heavy on the elderly. Isn't it nice to know that God remembers the elderly?
I just remind her she's not elderly yet.
Oh, she's not elderly yet?
Now, younger than me, I don't feel like that.
Woo. Well, I'm happy he remembers the elderly. But here I think in verse 7, it's just the pride of Babylon. And again, I kind of see parallels with America. You said, I will be queen forever. You did not take these things to heart or think about the outcome. And, you know, in some ways I see parallels with our country. I mean, we're a very powerful country, and I think we think it's going to go on like this forever, but it's not going to go on like this forever. We have to be very careful of pride.
Yeah, I don't think it's that long that.
No.
We've fallen so far.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're on the cusp of a greater judgment. I think we've already been under judgment, but I think it's going to get even worse. And
I think that
sadly.
when I was watching a thing last night about the end and what's going to happen starting before and all what it is. The one thing I guess that makes you gonna watch out for most is when it really starts. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's when Israel signs a peace treaty. That's when it all really begins. So the peace treaty with nations, everybody's getting along, and that's when
Right.
it really begins.
A lot of people believe that's the beginning of the tribulation. Many people argue there's a 7-year tribulation, believe that could be the kickoff point. Yeah. Mhm.
But I mean, what? Isn't that right, though? I mean, once they sign that peace treaty, like God's going to use all these nations to be good, or Israel's going to fall for it. Get the peace treaty, then everything within, well, okay, maybe 3 years, that what I'm saying?
Well, it would take us too long to get into it. Depends on how you interpret Daniel 9 verses 24 through 27. The general consensus by probably a lot of Christians is there is a 7-year peace treaty that Israel will sign. And part of that peace treaty will be the temple that they will be allowed to build. That is a big part of my book. It deals with that. I think there's an argument that the first 3.5 years were already fulfilled in Christ. Again, this depends on how you interpret Daniel 9, 24 through 27. And the time of peace may only be about 3.5 years. You know, so it depends on how prophecy is squishy. You know, it's like we don't But as Paul said, we see through a glass darkly. But I think we are possibly setting the stage for that peace treaty with what's going on with Iran and Hezbollah and everything. I think the stage is getting set for that peace treaty. We'll see how it plays out with Israel. But all I can say is if you see a bunch of nations come onto the Abraham Accords, and part of that involves a temple, you better strap on your seatbelt. So the Abraham Accords is what was begun under the first Trump administration, and you had 3 or 4 nations sign that, but it's a framework. It's different than anything else that they've done in the Middle East, but there are more nations that are talking about being involved with the Abraham Accords now. So again, I have to keep your eye on what's going on with that. I would not be surprised after this is all over that you have several nations who will sign on with Israel as part of the Abraham Accords. So things over there, like United Arab Emirates left OPEC. That's huge. So the whole global system is breaking apart and fragmenting right now. And so again, there's a lot going on with this Iranian war that's more than meets the eye, And if you want to know why the Iranians just won't sign a deal right now, they're hoping their Mahdi will show up. They believe their final Mahdi is coming. Iran's Shia Muslim, and they believe that he's alive but in hiding. They call it incultation. And they believe, according to their theology, for him to appear, there has to be mass chaos and mass war. That's why one of the reasons they've been firing missiles at other nations is they're trying to draw into this big thing going on, and they think their Mahdi's going to appear. So if you wonder one of the reasons why they have not been wanting to sign anything, I think there's a theological reason going on here. And just for yucks, the mayor of the largest city in the country, Mamdani, is a Shia Muslim, and he's a practicing Muslim. So he is looking for the Mahdi too. So I have to read my book. I get into it. But yeah. Anyways, another rabbit trail. Didn't mean to run.
Isaiah now Babylon, those queens, be no more.
Yeah. And isn't it interesting, when you said that, it reminds me of Mystery Babylon and Revelation. That same imagery as the queen, drinking the blood of the saints. And Babylon kind of stands for that whole thing. So again, verse 8, so now hear this, lover of luxury, Cadillacs, Mercedes-Benz, who sits insecurely and says to herself, I am and there is no one else. I will never be a widow or know the loss of children. Again, arrogance. These 2 things will happen to you. Notice how fast. Suddenly. In one day, the loss of children and widowhood. These will happen to you in their entirety in spite of your many sorceries and the potency of your spells. So I think one thing we forget, I don't know, COVID taught.
One comment. Babylon's pride and witchcraft led to sudden judgment.
All right.
God brings her down from luxury to dust.
Mm-hmm.
Reminder, no one stands against the Lord. Trust him alone.
There you go. There you go. And it's a reminder. I think COVID reminded me of how quickly things can change on a dime. And we think things will go way they've always gone, but instantly it can change, even on a world stage. And so God, of course, we know what happened to Babylon when the Medes came and did that. You are secure in your wickedness. You said, no one sees me. Your wisdom and knowledge lead you astray. You said to yourself, I am, and there is no one else. Again, just pride. Like, nobody's going to bring us down. We're the greatest empire in the world. We're rich. Nobody can stop us. But disaster will happen to you, and you will not know how to avert it. And it will fall on you, and you will not be able to ward it off. Devastation will happen to you. Here's that word, suddenly and unexpectedly. And things can change in a moment. So take your stand with your spells and your many sorceries, which you have wearied yourself with from your youth. Perhaps you will be able to succeed. Perhaps you will inspire terror. Again, I think this is sarcastic here. You are worn out with your many consultations. So let the astrologers stand and save you, those who observe the stars, those who predict monthly what will happen to you. Look, they are like stubble. Fire burns them. They cannot rescue themselves from the power of the flame. This is not a coal for warming themselves or a fire to sit beside. This is what they are to you, those who have wearied you and have traded with you from your youth. Each wanders his own way, and no one can save you. Now, do you think they practiced sorcery and witchcraft because it didn't work at all? I think they practiced this stuff because there was some power in it. I think there's demonic power behind this stuff, right? But God's reminding them and us that we don't need to be afraid of demons and stuff. I love, there's a scene in The Chosen. Our Chosen aficionados probably remember what season it is, 3 or 4, where I think it's the boy that's demon possessed, and everybody's trying to cast the demon out, and Jesus just walks up and says, "Out," and it's over. So it's like the demons can't stand up. I mean, when one man's got a legion of demons in him,
They ran out to sea.
Jesus says, "Get in the pigs," go to the pigs. I mean, it's just, these are powerful forces, okay? They're not to be taken lightly. Demon possession is not to be taken lightly. I certainly believe demons are at work in the world today. There are people that I see, sometimes I'm like, I think you're demon possessed. Now, that doesn't mean their heads are always spinning and they're foaming at the mouth. They can look normal, but when you look at what they're doing, but the reality is they can't stand against God. They cannot stand up against him. Satan tried that when Jesus was here the first time, right? He was like, kept throwing demon-possessed people at Jesus, and there wasn't a problem for the Messiah. But again, their arrogance brings them down. Chapter 48, and we're getting close to the end. I know y'all are probably getting tired. So I don't know if I'm going to read the whole passage. It's not super long. But one thing I want to, and it's still dealing with Babylon, but I want you to look at verse 3. God says, "I declare the past events long ago. They came out of my mouth. I proclaimed them. Suddenly I acted and they occurred." All right? "Because I know that you are stubborn and your neck is iron and your forehead bronze." We could add that to our list up there, right? Stubborn. "Therefore I declared to you long ago, I announced it to you before it occurred, so that you could not claim. My idol caused them, my carved images and cast idol controlled them." So obviously his people were into idol worship too, right? And so God's like, I'm telling you what's going to happen before it happens. And can you guys think of a time or a couple times in the Bible where God told something that was going to happen before it happened? Can you think of any times when God said that? Well, we already know one, right? He tells the Babylonian captivity is going to happen before it happened. But can you think of any other times that God said this is going to happen before it happened? The Messiah, yeah. Coming Messiah, that's in Isaiah 7, and that was about 700 years before the Messiah. John the Baptist, the messenger, that was in Micah, and that was about 400 plus years, 450 years before. Yep, John the Baptist. I call him JB. Good old John the Baptist, JB. Yes, that's when I had my notes. Yeah, captivity of the, and he said it'll be 430 years. He gave him a specific time, and he said in the 4th generation. Okay, that's one reason. A lot of people say a biblical generation is 40 years, 35 years, which I think there's an argument. But for me, God defines a generation as 100 years. So That's kind of why I argue Israel became a nation in 1948. I think we got till 2048, this generation. That's just one of my arguments, but that's the one place God seems to define a generation himself. We're going to say something?
The Zionists will be born.
Whoops. Hang on, let me finish Jerome here.
I also told them that they were going to leave there. Egypt was more than they went in.
Yes. Yep. Egypt was an incubator, wasn't it? It was the incubator. What were you going to say?
The Messiah was going to be born. Jesus was going to be born.
Right.
They knew what
Yes, they did. They knew where he was going to be born too, Micah and Bethlehem. Mm-hmm. Yep. I was thinking Jesus, when they were asking him about the end times, in Matthew 24, he says, I have told you these things in advance, so when they happen. So we already have a lot of stuff talked about. The end times have already been predicted in advance. How Jesus was going to be crucified, Psalm 22, it's poetic, but it tells us he's going to be pierced, his hands and feet, divided his garments. So the crucifixion is, and again, that was probably 700 years or more before it happened. So again, God tells the future, and a difference between Bible prophecy and prophecy in other religions is Bible prophecy is specific, right? Where other religions it's very kind of mamby-pamby.
Jesus predicted the coming of the Holy Spirit.
Coming of the Holy Spirit, yep. Were you going to say something, Dan?
In Genesis 3:15, that'd be about the first time.
Yep, that would be the first. Yeah, they call it the proto-evangelium, right? The that your seed and her seed, and talks about the coming one who would crush the head of Satan. Satan would strike his heel. Yep, that's the very first prophecy in Scripture. And Satan struck Christ's heel where? Where was Christ's heel struck? When? At the cross. And at the resurrection began the crushing of Satan's head. That didn't crush his head completely, because he's still around, but it will be crushed at the end. But the resurrection was the first beginning of the crushing, right? Yep. Moses in Numbers, Deuteronomy told the Jews they're going to depart, but one day they're going to be brought back. And it's a picture of the millennium right there. So one thing I just wanted to highlight from Isaiah 48, and you guys can read it, is, God says, I will tell you, I'm telling you what's coming. And of course, one of the reasons we have confidence in the return of Christ is right here, Isaiah 46, 47. Babylon's going to take over. Babylon's going to be defeated. We can look at history. That's what happened, right? Babylon took over from the Assyrians. Babylon was defeated. So we're like, okay, these things have happened. So when God says other stuff's coming, we know it's going to happen. So, and so that's incredible. And again, if you look at just real quickly down in verses 9 through 12, there's a bunch of those I will statements again. I will delay my anger for the sake of my name. I will restrain myself for your benefit and for my praise, so that you will not be destroyed. Look, I have refined you, but not as silver. I have tested you in the furnace of affliction. Verse 11, I will act for my own sake, indeed my own, for how can I be defiled? I will not give my glory to another. And I think it's a reminder that Israel, again, wasn't following God, but yet God says, I will do these things for you. I will carry you. I will do these things. I will redeem you. I'll restore you. But I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for my sake, right? And so we just need to remember that God is going to act for his name's sake. All right, well, we're going to wrap it up, because the mind can only bear what the seat can bear. And y'all have been, that's why we're going to talk to the leadership team about bringing back hard pews on Sunday mornings. Maybe wooden benches with no backs, like the good old days. Half logs.
I will be termed ironic about the fact that God sent, allowed, or sent, whichever terminology you want to use, Israel back to Babylon, which is the place of the Chaldeans,
Mhm.
same place Abraham came.
That is. It's interesting. Yes. Yep. Yep. Yeah. And that whole area is in the land of Shinar, which in the Bible is kind of like the vein of evil. I mean, in some ways, that's where Nimrod built his cities, and he built Babylon. If you remember that. Yeah. So it's interesting. Yeah.
We have the promise of Israel that they're going to go back to their home, same place that God promised Abraham.
Huh, yeah, interesting. Yeah, it's very interesting to me because when you look at the call of Abraham, it's like God says, okay, you know what? I'm going to pull a man right out of the heart of paganism and I want to make him the father of the Jewish race. Of course, Abraham was a descendant of Shem. And we don't know exactly much about Abraham's before. I kind of tend to think Abraham was pursuing God, maybe, even though he was in a pagan land. That's why God chose him. I don't know. Maybe it's because God knew his heart where he was going. But so he was part of that line of Shem. All right. So next week, drive-through prayer. We'll meet in here at 5:30 for prayer time. And then at 6 o'clock, we'll hit the streets. And we'll pray that we have a great summer. Dan, will you be out there flagging people through, you and Roger? All right. And so Beth needs a sign